Hello dear viewers, here is a new video that I will please you on my channel Manhwa Compilation. I hope you like my story and how I told it to you. In the realm of Yan, a fantastical land steeped in swordplay and sorcery, power reigns supreme. At the zenith of this dominion stand the revered triumvirate known as the Three Reverends, and the illustrious quartet hailed as the Four Saints. The Four Saints, originators of four legendary schools, disseminate their teachings across the globe. Meanwhile, the enigmatic Three Reverends shroud themselves in seclusion, their detachment from worldly affairs a constant. In a world where these paragons hold absolute sway, their devotees thrive while insurrectionists meet a dire end. Yet in the eternal cycle of transformation, old orders give way to new, and fresh heroes emerge. Our story takes flight with a celestial spectacle as the heavens burst forth in a dazzling blaze, narrowly missing a three-headed wolf below. Amidst the dissipating mist, an astonishing revelation awaits. Alongside the meteoric flash, descends an unsuspecting youth right onto the wolf's lair. The three-headed guardian, incensed by the perceived threat to its progeny, lunges with predatory intent. The fallen youngster, nursing his injuries, ponders the peculiar twist of fate that brought him to this enigmatic realm. Suddenly, an acrid odor pervades the air, prompting him to inquire about the source. Alas, his innocent query yields a menacing visage, a colossal three-headed wolf signaling imminent peril. The youth, realizing the dire straits he's in, breaks into a frantic sprint, but the relentless wolf gives chase. In an awe-inspiring display, the beast emits a thunderous roar, paralyzing the youth momentarily before conjuring an icy blade. A nimble dodge narrowly avoids the frigid edge, leaving the boy marveling at its power to slice through wood with ease. Determinedly, he resumes his desperate flight, beseeching the wolf to reconsider, explaining that his trespass was inadvertent and vengeance unnecessary. The icy breath of the pursuing wolf narrowly misses the youth, who can't help but lament his miserable plight in this alien world. In a moment of frustration, he unwittingly insults the beast, likening its reeking breath to a tangible affront to hygiene standards. Exasperated, he even extends a curse, hoping the wolf's daughter remains unwed. In response, the wolf unleashes a surging wave of energy, its intensity escalating. A surge of knowledge suddenly courses through the boy's mind, revealing the mysterious Hua technique, which promises miraculous feats. It details a sequence where gales manifest, blades draw forth rainbows, and strength and speed amplify threefold. The boy is baffled by the sudden resurgence of techniques he'd learned as a child. Buoyed by newfound energy, he seizes control of his fate, employing the flash technique to elude the wolf's impending energy onslaught, narrowly escaping its clutches. He marvels at the inexplicable resurgence of a skill that had failed him in his former life. Amidst his escape, he catches sight of a familiar silhouette, prompting him to offer explanations. Yet, the relentless creature heaves towards him, rejecting any discourse. Desperately dashing through thickets, he unexpectedly finds himself airborne, careening towards a young girl standing below. Despite urgently advising her to flee, he plummets atop her, resulting in an awkward, blush-inducing collision. The pursuing beast closes in, its predatory instincts aflame. In a valiant move, the boy shoves the girl to safety, ensuring she evades the clutches of the voracious monster. He incurs a laceration from the creature's claws, cementing his knowledge that he is, indeed, marked for an unforeseen destiny. An enigmatic elderly figure materializes out of thin air, delivering a powerful strike that hurls the disgruntled beast farther away. He inquires about the girl's well-being, and, in the same breath, the presence of the injured boy at their feet. Anxiety floods the girl as she tries to recollect the circumstances, realizing the boy's dire condition. The elderly man seeks an explanation for the boy's care, launching an assault on the nocturnal predator to secure their safety. Wei cradles the injured boy in her arms, tending to his wounds and grateful that she was able to save this enigmatic stranger. As consciousness slips away, the boy finds himself immersed in an unfamiliar, murky realm, grappling with questions of identity and purpose. Vivid memories resurface, a painful reminder of torment inflicted by peers who ridiculed his unwavering belief in fantastical cultivation. A harsh recollection of rejection from the girl he had once confessed to, her dismissal searing into his heart. and the cruel mockery of online friends who derided his prolonged computer gaming as a mark of isolation. The boy despairs, convinced that his current circumstances are even bleaker than those of a stray dog. He yearns for this ordeal to be nothing more than a nightmare. Suddenly, the voice of the girl he saved pierces the darkness, commanding him to awaken. In a half-conscious state, the boy reaches out to the girl, momentarily grappling with the realization of his predicament. His release of her triggers a rush of embarrassment and apologies, the result of an overexcited response due to sleep. The tranquil scene is shattered by the raucous shout of an elderly man summoning Lu Fong to address an urgent matter. Wei urges Lu Fong out of bed, aware that her grandfather's impatience looms. Having spent a month in this world, Lu Fong can't help but lament his unenviable streak of luck. A fatal encounter with a computer explosion catapulted him into the unfamiliar continent of Elen. Here, he was immediately pursued by a three-headed wolf, only to be saved and taken under the wing of Wei and her grandfather. In this world, anyone can harness both physical and magical powers, with 11 distinct levels of mastery. Those who ascend to the 9th level are honored as masters, while the pinnacle, the 10th level, is reserved for the exalted title of saints. Whispers even suggest a realm beyond the legendary heights. The majority dwell at levels 3 or 4. Contrastingly, Haku's grandfather wields the power of a level 5 swordsman, and Wei is the devoted disciple of one of the revered 4 saints. Meanwhile, Lu Fong possesses the enigmatic Huasa technique, initially deemed worthless in his youth, yet he fervently believed in its unparalleled strength. After relentless dedication, he found himself left with naught but disillusionment. However, a peculiar twist of fate breathed life into his dormant skills in this new world, albeit in an unexpected manner. He aspires to harness it further through the mystical energies of this realm, reflecting on how his fortunes seem better here, as he had little to lose in his previous existence. Suddenly, Wei playfully thrust Lu Fong's attire into his face, cheekily branding him a bum, while instructing him to dress up. As Lu Fong swiftly changed into the provided attire, Wei's countenance brightened, deeming him reminiscent of a rugged mercenary. Struggling with a stubborn buckle, Lu Fong quizzically inquired whether it was intended as a compliment or an affront. Exasperated by his futile attempts, Wei affectionately chastised him as an idiot and took charge of the task herself. Observing her, Lu Fong marveled at the paradox of such a charming girl being so commanding. Downstairs, customers clamored for Wei's swift service, yearning for refreshing libations. After tending to the orders, she entrusted Lu Fong with a precarious stack of dishes, cautioning him against any mishaps that could invoke his grandfather's wrath. Abruptly, the tavern door swung wide open, seizing the attention of all present. Lu Fong, at long last, concluded his relentless dishwashing, but Wei, sneaking up on him, playfully tapped his cheek. She erupted in playful scolding, berating him as an idiot for attempting to carry too many dishes at once, an act that, if ended in calamity, might provoke his grandfather's ire. Embarrassed, Lu Fong earnestly apologized, vowing never to repeat the mistake. The memory of a past incident resurfaced in Wei's mind, and she inquired why Lu Fong had chosen to rescue her despite their prior unfamiliarity. Lu Fong awkwardly confessed that he couldn't bear not to help, considering that he had inadvertently led the ferocious beast to them. Furthermore, he reasoned that her life held more value than his, for he lacked anyone who cared for him, making his own demise inconsequential. Unexpectedly, Wei vehemently rebuked him, demanding to know how he could make such a self-deprecating statement. She asserted her need for him and declared him a part of their newfound family. Lu Fong couldn't help but smile, reveling in the realization that he had found a place in someone's heart, and he found Wei endearing. Abruptly, an unfamiliar man, accompanied by attendants, intruded upon their gathering, pointing an accusatory finger at Lu Fong. He vehemently demanded that Lu Fong move away from his supposed bride-to-be, sending shockwaves through Lu Fong. Hastening to clarify, Lu Fong questioned Wei about the situation, and she promptly denied any engagement to the stranger, asserting her right to choose her own partner. In retort, the man questioned whether her grandfather was aware of her defiance, highlighting her status as a disciple of a saint, highly regarded by LD, the Lon Sephim Academy's president. Undeterred, Wei retorted that he was a guest in their home and should refrain from hurling insults. She would sooner face death than marry someone like him. The aristocrat fumed at Wei's defiance, but his aide reminded him of their teacher's counsel. Subsequently, he urged Wei not to provoke him further, as he was genuinely concerned about her feelings. He implored her not to dismiss him hastily, emphasizing his father's authority as the city's master. Lu Fang marveled at the revelation that this brash individual's father wielded such influence, but Wei advised him to pay no heed and urged him to depart. The aristocrat warned Wei that she couldn't escape the inevitable marriage, citing his father's willingness to sponsor her education at Exian Lawn. These prestigious institutions were home to elite mages and warriors from renowned aristocratic families. He painted a bleak picture of her fate if she declined, likening her to a beggar alongside the boy beside her. Lu Fang refused to stand idly by as Wei faced such indignity, and he boldly labeled her suitor a bastard, accusing him of assuming she would wed for monetary gain. One of the aristocrat's subordinates couldn't tolerate this affront any longer and offered to teach the insolent man a lesson. He forbade Lu Fang from delivering a fatal blow, but encouraged him to impart a lesson on his place in the world. Subsequently, Lu Fang seized Wei's hand and employed the hurricane steps, effortlessly evading the assailant's attacks and advancing toward the aristocrat. He exposed the aristocrat's powerlessness, condemning his bullying of the weaker populace as a pitiable display. In the end, he was but a petty tyrant, dependent on his father's authority. The nobleman's patience dwindled, and he unsheathed his sword in a bid to eliminate his insolent adversary. Lu Fang, with remarkable agility, eluded each attack, compelling the nobleman to concede his inability to lay a finger on him. Consequently, he chose to engage Lu Fang in unarmed combat. His escorts redoubled their efforts, but to their chagrin, Lu Fang skillfully incapacitated them without suffering any harm. After subduing the escorts, Lu Fang contemplated the potency of the hurricane steps, realizing that it might align with the strength alluded to in Hwasa. With his inner energy unlocked, he embarked on his journey to master the Hwasa technique. Combat, it seemed, was the crucible of strength. Nevertheless, he remained uncertain of his newfound power's level in this unfamiliar world. Wei expressed her astonishment at Lu Fang's latent abilities, prompting him to confess that he had been unaware of them until now. Reflecting on their recent altercation, he inquired whether their actions might lead to trouble due to their assault on the city master's son. Wei assured him that the blame rested squarely on their assailants, as they had initiated the confrontation. She hinted at the possibility of lodging a complaint with their teacher should the need arise. This assurance calmed Lu Fang's nerves, and he urged Wei to return home promptly to avoid his grandfather's wrath. Wei found herself pondering why a person bereft of magical prowess could stir her emotions so profoundly, struggling to fathom how a man devoid of supernatural energy could contend with a level 4 swordsman and her formidable techniques. He possessed a remarkable ability that allowed him to move at breathtaking speeds, an undeniable anomaly by any perspective. We pondered his identity briefly, but it quickly faded from our minds as we realized its insignificance. Wei then proposed a trip to the market, enticed by rumors of exciting arrivals, and Lu Fang readily accepted. Upon their return, a contented Lu Fang hummed a romantic tune, prompting Wei curiosity about his uncharacteristic cheerfulness. He disclosed that today he had honed his skills, not just in running but in manipulating objects with his newfound technique. Perplexed, Wei inquired about the mysterious Hwasa, but Lu Fang chuckled and evaded the question, holding Wei above her waist, insisting that she needed to know one thing: he could safeguard her in the future. Wei blushed, feeling uncomfortably close to Lu Fang, and after a moment, she freed herself with a swift slap, leaving Lu Fang bewildered. He dashed towards the tavern, announcing a dishwashing wager for those lagging behind, which irked Wei. She protested, alleging that he'd cheated by starting early. Lu Fang reached the tavern first, flinging open the door with gusto, only to find the lifeless bodies of patrons strewn about and a wounded elderly man in the clutches of adversaries. Witnessing, he urgently implored her to flee the dire scene. Then, Letting, the lord of Roma City, greeted Wei. Catching sight of Lu Fang, Letting pointed at him, loudly recounting how he had humiliated him and disparaged their family as worthless. Observing the unfolding chaos, Lu Fang's anger surged, and he tapped into his formidable power to confront his adversaries. With lightning-fast hurricane steps, he closed in on Letting, demanding the release of his grandfather. However, Letting simply brushed him off as an audacious youngster, finding humor in the situation, although he deemed Lu Fang's approach sluggish. As Lu Fang neared, Letting nonchalantly used a single finger to propel him forcefully into the wall. Wei, deeply concerned for Lu Fang, warned Letting, threatening to report him to her teacher. But Letting, undeterred, decided to wield his powers, ominously implying that Wei would never see her teacher again, and that he intended to use her to reach the saints. Failing to pique her interest, Letting resorted to a more sinister solution. Subsequently, Wei found herself enveloped in a shroud of dark energy, constricting her, rendering her breathless, and impeding her spell casting. Awakening from the impact, Lu Fang swiftly charged toward Letting, demanding a halt to his malevolent actions. In a sudden twist, Letting hurled grandfather towards him, sending them both crashing to the ground. Without delay, he summoned a potent sword, releasing a surge of energy before aiming it at Lu Fang, who valiantly shielded himself with his grandfather. Hawk's grandfather implored Lu Fang to take Wei and flee, while he stayed behind to contend with the overpowering Letting. However, Letting dismissed their attempt, questioning his brother's eagerness to meet his demise. He clenched his fist and mercilessly ended Hawk's grandfather's life. Devastated by her grandfather's demise, Wei harnessed every ounce of her power to shatter her shackles. Letting commended her resilience, responding with even greater force as the dark tendrils constricted her, intensifying her anguish. Simultaneously, Lu Fang managed to rise, preparing to confront Letting head-on. Yet Lie Nu spotted his intent and alerted his father, who effortlessly employed a dash of days to slam Lu Fang into the wall, urging him not to die too quickly so he could witness the impending finale. Lie Nu, well aware of Wei's fondness for Lu Fang, extended an unsettling offer to claim her as his own. Upon hearing this, Lu Fang issued dire threats to Lie Nu, vowing retaliation if he dared to lay a finger on her. Unfazed, Lie Nu dismissed Lu Fang as powerless, deeming his threats meaningless, as there was no way he could save her. Taunting Wei, he began tearing at her clothes, ridiculing the fact that she, despite being one of the saints, couldn't resist, all the while ignoring her pleas for release. As Lu Fang watched this horrifying scene unfold, his rage boiled over, granting him even greater strength than before, enabling him to break free from his restraints. Lu Fang couldn't help but find this development intriguing, yet he remained outmatched by Letting's might. Lu Fang questioned him about the saint's formidable abilities, to which Liang retorted that until they ascended to true sainthood, disposing of them was far from difficult. And if Teacher Wei were to inquire about his actions, he intended to fabricate a sinister narrative, claiming that an unknown assailant had arrived at her doorstep, mercilessly slaying her before offering up his own head as proof. Letting's spiteful suggestion to Lu Fang was that he should peacefully depart for the netherworld. Moments later, Wei's commanding voice echoed, insisting that Lie Nu make an immediate exit, and an earth-shattering blast followed suit. Luong pivoted to witness Wei's remarkable feat of breaking free from her restraints. She then began to harness her energy, conjuring a vibrant blue crystal. Tears welled in Wei's eyes as she reassured Lu Fang not to fret. Letting realize too late that Wei intended to end her life alongside his, and he desperately tried to intervene, but the explosion was inevitable. Lu Fang was dumbfounded by Wei's courageous act and reached out to her, calling her name. She admitted her happiness in his presence and wished him well. Lu Fang hurried to prevent her sacrifice, but the very fabric of space began to crackle, ultimately shattering. All that Lu Fang could clutch was a fragment of Wei in the form of a ribbon, leaving the tavern reduced to a blazing ruin due to Wei's self-sacrifice. Despite this calamity, Liang managed to escape with his frightened son. Meanwhile, Lu Fang tumbled through a portal that opened a considerable distance from RMA City. Upon regaining his senses, Lu Fang clutched Wei's ribbon to his heart, vowing to avenge them against the malevolent foe. Lu Fang soon realized he was disoriented regarding his location, but remained resolute about returning for retribution. Suddenly, a massive explosion erupted nearby, shrouding the area in smoke. A menacing black dragon materialized, and two valiant warriors argued over who would slay it. Regrettably, the colossal dragon's mere movements inflicted harm upon them. In a moment of suspicion, the dragon briefly regarded Lu Fang, but he dismissed the notion of an ambush, knowing he was alone. He decided to focus on devouring his prey, a means to evade the troubling thoughts that haunted him. Out of the blue, a strange scent wafted into his nostrils, catching his attention, and he suspected it had an earthly origin. However, his fleeting contemplations were swiftly shattered by a barrage of arrows hurtling towards him. Tragically, one of the arrows veered off course, hurtling straight towards Lu Fang. Unexpectedly, a black dragon swooped in to shield Lu Fang from the impending disaster, leaving him gravely wounded. Astonished, Lu Fang questioned why the dragon had intervened, but the dragon's thoughts were solely fixed on the audacity of these level 7 insects daring to attack. The arrow had been launched by an elderly archer known as the Dragon Killer. Subsequently, the remaining group of assailants converged on the dragon, determined to eliminate it and the enigmatic figure beside it. Their ultimate goal, capturing the dragon's valuable eggs. In a daring move, one warrior unleashed a fiery meteor attack. Instead of dodging, the dragon sheltered Lu Fang beneath its wing, further intensifying Lu Fang's curiosity about why he was being protected. The black dragon turned to Lu Fang, revealing his intention to handle their adversaries while urging Lu Fang to make a swift escape. But Lu Fang remained rooted to the spot, haunted by the memory of his grandfather's sacrificial act. He wondered why others were risking their lives for him, much like how Haku's grandfather had met his tragic end. As the warriors renewed their assault on the dragon, poised to deliver a fatal blow, Lu Fang suddenly erupted with a surge of energy. The dragon's blood infused his being, shattering his physical limits and causing his shell to crack. In an instant, he harnessed the power of dragon fury, releasing a formidable aura. The dragon barely had time to comprehend this unexpected twist before witnessing Lu Fang's rapid movement toward their adversaries, ready to confront them head-on. A green-haired warrior cautioned Lu Fang against letting anger dictate his actions. Unexpectedly, a young girl leaped forward, brandishing her axe and urging him to stand aside. To her astonishment, he effortlessly halted her axe with his bare fist. A sudden explosion sent both Lu Fang and the axe-wielding girl flying in opposite directions. The dragon's tail swept Lu Fang off the ground, instructing him to steer clear as their opponents were holy-level masters armed with sacred weapons. Meanwhile, the girl, upon landing, grew increasingly intrigued by her resilient adversary, unable to fathom how he had resisted her earlier. Lu Fang managed to break free from the dragon's grasp, hurtling toward the girl. In an instant, he stood behind her, poised to incapacitate her with a powerful leg strike. However, his attack was abruptly thwarted by the green-haired man's massive hammer. The impact sent Lu Fang flying back, causing the ground to tremble beneath him. Capitalizing on the distance, the green-haired warrior unleashed his hammer's projectiles at Lu Fang. The dragon cautioned him to exercise caution, revealing that their adversaries possessed a blessing and wielded power almost on par with the saints. Lu Fang couldn't help but ponder this revelation. Despite their strength, they seemed incomparable to this enigmatic figure, leaving him utterly horrified at the unfathomable might he must possess. Suddenly, Lu Fang began coughing up blood, struggling to comprehend his deteriorating condition. His strength waned, and the effects of the dragon's fury had dissipated. Overwhelmed, Lu Fang lost consciousness, diverting the black dragon's attention away from the battle. Seizing the opportunity, their leader delivered a treacherous blow, prompting the girl to rally the others to pounce on the weakened dragon. Force it into a corner, the dragon had no choice but to scoop up Lu Fang and employ magic to flee far from the conflict. The elderly archer, along with other dragon slayers, unleashed a volley of arrows at the dragon. Their leader flung his sword at the escaping dragon, proclaiming their intent to follow through a portal. However, they were too late as a portal materialized, allowing the black dragon to escape through it. Although the green-haired man expressed dissatisfaction at their failure, the group's leader claimed to have struck the dragon with his sword. The axe-wielding girl reassured them that she had cast a spell to hinder their adversaries. After regaining consciousness, Lu Fang found himself in an unfamiliar location. Unexpectedly, a nearby voice introduced itself as Yacht, the man who had saved him. Upon inspecting the sword in his chest, Lu Fang quickly realized its familiarity. Yacht then revealed his true identity as a black dragon in human form. Grateful for the rescue, Lu Fang offered to assist Yacht in removing the sword. However, as Luong attempted to pull out the sword, the dragon howled in pain, vehemently warning that it couldn't be removed without causing lethal harm and significant bleeding. Lu Fang withdrew his hands, apologetic for his unintentional action. The dragon, however, handed him the sword, suggesting that he might find use for it in the future. Concerned for Yacht's well-being, Lu Fang inquired about his condition, to which Yacht assured him that the wound would heal within a month. Rising to his feet, Yacht disclosed that they were in his fortress, which had remained hidden from human discovery for a long time. Yacht explained that their assailants hailed from 4 different empires and various mercenary regiments, all seeking to steal his dragon egg. When Lu Fang questioned why the egg was concealed in a garbage dump, Yacht explained that it was a strategic hiding place. He then proudly unveiled the gleaming egg. Initially, Lu Fang saw it as just a large egg, but Yacht insisted that it was a female and had been born from him. Around 6 months earlier, Yacht awoke to discover his transformation into a black dragon. Shortly thereafter, he had expelled the egg and commenced caring for it. Given that the egg had emerged from his mouth, Yacht was convinced it was his offspring. He humorously speculated that all eggs must be laid in a similar manner. Upon hearing this, Lu Fang couldn't refute Yacht's logic, though it still struck him as peculiar. Suddenly, Yacht offered an egg to Lu Fang, declaring it a gift for his daring escape. Venturing through this alien realm, a place far removed from Earth, Lu Fang's curiosity was instantly piqued upon hearing about the land. He eagerly probed the dragon, questioning how it came to know of this place and whether any of its inhabitants still existed there. Yacht proceeded to recount his encounters over the past 6 months in this enigmatic world. Suddenly he winced, clutching his wound, and let out a groan, muttering, "Lu Fang's support hasn't been much help, and I'm deteriorating." Concerned, Lu Fang inquired about Yacht's injury and whether he could tend to it. Yacht reassured him, stating that dragons don't easily succumb to death, and then lightened the mood with a jest. Yacht surmised that Lu Fang was pondering why on earth anyone would dare to attack a dragon. Lu Fang confirmed this notion, musing that there were scarcely 100 dragons in this world, making him wonder why someone would risk their wrath by attempting to steal an egg. Yacht disclosed the ancient history of dragons protecting their own, and the expulsion of black dragons from the dragon clan after a theft from the dragon god. This led to a quest by those seeking the power of dragons, who required dragon eggs since they couldn't subdue an adult dragon. Yacht himself had fallen victim to their relentless pursuit. If he could return to Earth, he would do so immediately, as it was a dreary place devoid of mobile games, rendering it unappealing for prolonged stays. Lu Fang accepted the dragon's account, but remained curious as to why his power had awakened in this particular realm and what lay ahead. Yacht explained that Lu Fang's strength was indeed exceptional and unlike anything in this world. There were no detectable spiritual or magical fluctuations, yet his combat prowess was formidable. When Lu Fang inquired about his own abilities, he admitted his uncertainty, attributing it to some form of internal training he was undergoing. Yacht speculated that Lu Fang's unique power might stem from his innate differences, even though he had been living in this world for some time. Thus, Yacht was keen to learn how Lu Fang had ventured into the forest alone. Lu Fang, his mind returning to a past incident, expressed a desire for vengeance, yearning to send the souls of Wei and Grandpa Haku to heaven. Upon hearing this, the dragon swiftly informed Lu Fang that Wei could still be saved, thanks to the presence of a life goddess in this world. According to legend, it was a matter of minutes to save her, but only if he could locate the goddess. Suddenly, the cave began to tremble, signaling the arrival of humans. Yacht instinctively recognized their vibrations and wondered how they had found their way here. Spotting an out-of-place blue butterfly, he promptly obliterated it, realizing it was a tracking spell. Yacht assured Lu Fang that he would employ teleportation magic to escape with his companion, and urged him not to worry, as he could easily evade pursuit. Before departing, he bequeathed Lu Fang a sacred sword, advising caution in its use to avoid the resulting backlash. Lu Fang, feeling protected despite his own weakness, resolved to grow stronger to resurrect Wei, safeguard the dragon egg, and face the challenges ahead. Just as a portal opened near him, he plummeted into it. Simultaneously, New spiritual disruptions disturbed the portal, and Yat yelled at Lu Fong not to enter, for the teleportation process had been disrupted. Helpless to intervene, Lu Fong watched as blood from his wound dripped onto the dragon egg, triggering a surge of energy. In an instant, both Lu Fong and his dragon daughter were engulfed by the portal. Upon emerging on the other side, Lu Fong found himself in an unfamiliar territory, the domain of the shackles. However, his landing wasn't graceful, and he struggled to recall Yat's final words. Suddenly, he noticed a crack in the dragon egg, which began emitting light, hinting at an impending explosion. Moments later, the egg shattered, propelling Lu Fong away and enveloping the area in a colossal plume of smoke. Upon closer inspection, he discovered a small Chinese dragon had hatched from the egg. Lu Fong gingerly cradled the young dragon, pondering its gender. Unexpectedly, the dragon-kin transformed into human form and promptly struck Lu Fong. Wincing, Lu Fong questioned where the dragon had learned such a move. Undeterred, the dragon-kin struck once more, determined to teach a lesson. He then conjured clothing for himself, while Lu Fong bemoaned the bloodshed required for such a bold dragoness to be born. Yat had claimed it was a girl, yet a boy had emerged. However, after some contemplation, Lu Fong sighed and questioned why he had been burdened with this responsibility. Suddenly, the dragon perched on his head and declared its hunger, leaving Lu Fong flustered. Covering his chest, he expressed relief that dragons didn't require milk. The dragon clarified its appetite for meat, prompting Lu Fong to promise to find sustenance for the hungry creature, given its youthful needs. Drawing his sword, he employed the Storm Steps technique and set out to hunt. Meanwhile, human forces arrived at the teleportation site. One warrior mused that they were late, as their enigmatic guests had already departed. Their speculation revolved around whether it was a dragon or a human, as such powerful individuals had been absent from the land for a century. An hour later, Lu Fong successfully secured prey and began preparing it for the voracious dragon. Once the meat was ready, the dragon-kin eagerly devoured it, while casting curious glances at Lu Fong. However, Lu Fong feigned lack of appetite and assured the dragon that it need not worry. After sampling the meat, the dragon-kin expressed disappointment in its flavor. This prompted Lu Fong to remember that Yat had never provided a name for the dragon. Determined to christen the creature, he settled on the name Xiao Jin, signifying its extraordinary birth. Gazing upon the dragon's countenance, Lu Fong couldn't help but feel that the dragon's expression held a hint of mockery directed at his own cultural sophistication. Following their meal, Xiao Jin reclined at Lu Fong's feet, requesting undisturbed slumber. As he observed the slumbering dragon, Lu Fong harbored hopes for Yat's safe escape, knowing that he had entrusted his son's well-being to him. He understood the need to grow stronger, not just for the resurrection of Wei, but also to safeguard everyone. Surveying the surroundings, Lu Fong found this place to be an ideal spot for practice. His future endeavors involved unraveling clues about the goddess of life and ultimately reuniting with Yat. Meanwhile, within the grand halls of the Xi-Enlon Empire's main palace, Yishan Ao was engrossed in a book when an urgent report disrupted his peace. The spy had grave news. The team sent to secure dragon eggs had failed in their mission, allowing the Black Dragon to elude capture. Furious, Yishan Ao berated them as fools, despite their possession of sacred weaponry, which proved futile against the dragon. The spy disclosed that a black-haired, black-eyed child had assisted the dragon, prompting Yishan Ao to dispatch his subordinates to track down any traces of this mysterious ally. However, Yishan Ao harbored alternative plans. 10 days later, Lu Fong and the dragon cub found themselves encircled by signs that read, "Meat." Amid this peculiar situation, a distant rumble emanated from Xiao, who voiced his discomfort. Lu Fong reassured him and urged him to focus on hunting. Their respite was abruptly interrupted by a hungry wolf, catching the attention of its boss. The mercenariess Assumed Lu Fong was seeking their aid, facing a 7th-level red wolf in pursuit. Thus, they rushed to his rescue. Beta, though, expressed skepticism, sensing something amiss. They had been wandering for some time without any results, and the signs surrounding the boy appeared dubious. Their leader acknowledged Beta's caution, but believed the boy was truly in danger. Convinced that the red wolf outmatched them, he ordered AA, Cover, and Saima to join him. Collectively, they attacked the red wolf, but it evaded their assault with a swift leap, leaving the mercenaries bewildered. Realizing the odds were not in their favor, they scattered in retreat. As they fled, their chief implored Lu Fang to save himself while they diverted the wolf's attention. Xiao Jin, deprived of his anticipated meal, sobbed, lamenting their fruitless wait for the wolf. Lu Fang countered, reminding him that the mercenaries had only sought to rescue them, and they could not remain idle. In their panicked escape, the mercenaries wondered why the relentless wolf continued its pursuit. The gnome felt disheartened by their chief's bravado, knowing he couldn't defeat a level 7 wolf himself. He hadn't even had the chance to bid farewell to his sister. Unexpectedly, their chief, leading the charge, tripped over a rock. To everyone's astonishment, he fell, and the red wolf seized the opportunity to pounce. In the blink of an eye, a mysterious figure sliced through the air, cleaving the wolf in mid-leap. Lu Fang effortlessly dispatched the wolf and expressed gratitude to the mercenary who had saved him. Just as abruptly, Xiao Jin landed on Lu Fang's head, clamoring for meat. That evening, the mercenaries, along with Lu Fang and the dragonkin, savored the wolf meat. The chief marveled at Lu Fang's talents and admitted he hadn't considered him as a decoy. Lu Fang revealed his strategy of luring beasts using signs and feigning death on the ground. However, the wolf only pursued them upon spotting it. The chief, curious about Lu Fang's circumstances, inquired about their presence in the area. Lu Fang explained their predicament, lost and with no destination in mind. The chief, unfazed, assured them that, as a Ken who knew the entire continent, he could guide them anywhere. Elated by the offer, Lu Fang wasted no time in asking about the whereabouts of the goddess of life. Unfortunately, Ken admitted he had no knowledge of her. Beta chimed in, recounting that all gods ceased their activities after the War of the Gods, and the goddess of life had vanished. Lu Fang despaired at the seeming impossibility of resurrecting Wei. Ken, however, offered solace, suggesting that the goddess of life might still be found, despite her absence from the world's eyes. Joining their ranks as a mercenary would grant them access to the mercenary guild, essential for obtaining information and quests. With rewards and sustenance secured, they could leave behind concerns of food and drink. Lu Fang and Xiao Jin readily agreed, driven by their respective desires. Lu Fang's quest for the goddess of life, and Xiao Jin's yearning for delicious fare. Ken produced a stack of paperwork, initiating the enrollment process, which included comprehensive terms such as insurance, medical benefits, vacations, housing, food subsidies, disability coverage, and even death benefits. Lu Fang requested a pause, his head throbbing from the sheer volume of details. Eventually, the mercenaries reached their destination, the heart of the human empire, the Fortress of Sunset. Upon entering the city, they headed straight to a tavern to celebrate their newest member. Ken assured Lu Fang that this tavern was the finest in Sunset Fortress, offering a diverse selection of wines. The hostess served them dragonblood beer as ordered. Xiao Jin, discontent with his juice, sought a stronger beverage. The hostess inquired about his age, warning against the harmful effects of alcohol. To her surprise, Xiao Jin claimed to be over 100 years old, counting his time spent in the egg. Her initial astonishment soon gave way to laughter, as she pondered the child's unique perspective. He embodied a dragon, and Lu Fang stifled the dragon's boastful roars. He leaned in and quipped about the dragon's penchant for theatrics. Then, the mistress instructed Xiao Jin that duty came first, promising Lai Sura later. Xiao Jin seized Lu Fang by the collar, questioning why he couldn't just embrace his dragon nature. What if revealing his secret made him more endearing to his sister? Lu Fang scanned the room cautiously, ensuring no prying ears lurked nearby. He leaned in and whispered to Xiao Jin that this was no place for confessions. Exposing himself could invite danger. Hearing the dire consequences, Xiao Jin hesitated, but ultimately agreed to keep mum. Out of the blue, Ken approached, his inquiry addressing the despondent Xiao Jin's hunger. He offered to treat Xiao Jin to anything he desired. Xiao Jin's face lit up with joy, and he promptly summoned the lovely waitress to bring him a menu. Mere minutes later, Xiao Jin was enthusiastically devouring a mountain of meat, while Lu Fang engaged Ken in a conversation about those who possessed knowledge of the goddess of life. Following exhaustive inquiries and gaining no insights, Ken decided to probe Lu Fang about his quest for the goddess of life, even hinting at immortality. Lu Fang revealed his mission was driven by a desire to reunite with loved ones. Ken was moved by his sentiment and commended Lu Fang's selflessness and kindness. He admitted he was glad to call him a friend. Meanwhile, shrieks erupted from another corner of the tavern, prompting concern. Lu Fang feared Xiao Jin had slipped up and headed in his direction, only to find the young one demolishing a colossal feast. Ken marveled at the child's appetite, his wallet shivering at the thought. Lu Fang offered a quick excuse, attributing Xiao Jin's voraciousness to growth. A group led by Deputy Chief Wuk Kai of the Rhapsodian Mercenary Regiment entered the tavern, sending Ken into action. He urged Lu Fang to leave since clashes with the rival Rodic Regiment were never far off, especially today. They had come in force, but for now, Ha and his crew remained seated, not initiating hostilities. Ken was also engaged by old acquaintances, and he suggested Lu Fang accompany him for introductions. Wuk Kai attempted to impress a lady with the tavern's beef, only to be informed it was sold out. Undeterred, he offered fried dragon claws as an alternative, receiving another apology. When asked about available options, the hostess pointed to Lu Fang, revealing that all the meat had been ordered by another guest, Lu Fang himself. Ken had regaled his acquaintances with the tale of Lu Fang's one-strike defeat of a 7th-level Red Wolf, but skepticism abounded. Wuk Kai interjected, taunting Ken about not dying in the supposed Stepworks incident, which the Rhapsodian Mercenary Regiment had prepared a grand funeral for. Ken retorted with anger, asserting the truth of the story. Wuk Kai challenged the claim, asking how a child with no battle spirit could slay a level 7 Red Wolf. Ken insisted it was true, and Wuk Kai proposed Lu Fang kill him to prove it, with Lu Fang agreeing to up the ante. The wager was set. Wuk Kai would depart forever if he lost. Wuk Kai welcomed the challenge, unleashing his fighting spirit. However, Ken noticed something amiss and halted Lu Fang's attack. Wuk Kai had lied and was already at level 8. Lu Fang pleaded for trust and borrowed a pipe from the landlady. He assured Wuk Kai that a pipe would suffice, raising it to Wuk Kai's neck and releasing his power, intent on avenging his friend. Spectators marveled at the audacious kid challenging Wuk Kai and feared for Lu Fang. Ken was torn, confident in Lu Fang's abilities but aware of Wuk Kai's overwhelming strength. The battle between brother Lu Fang and Wuk Kai became a test of faith and friendship. Ken reiterated his eyewitness account of Lu Fang's one-strike victory over the Red Wolf. Convinced that Wuk Kai was no match for him, he challenged anyone who doubted it to step forward. His acquaintances, now persuaded, intended to claim not only Ken's money, but also his pride. Wuk Kai charged at Lu Fang, anticipating an easy victory. Lu Fang, however, unleashed a newly mastered technique, creating 2 duplicates with Wasa's skill. Concentrating and reciting a mysterious incantation, he dodged Wuk Kai's attack and delivered 2 powerful blows with his pipes, sending Wuk Kai crashing through the tavern wall. Lu Fang admitted he nearly lost, as pulling off such a feat with a pipe was no easy task. The onlookers were stunned by Wuk Kai's defeat, leading some to doubt his claims about his level. Ken laughed triumphantly, praising brother Lu Fang for exceeding expectations. He demanded payment from those who had doubted, but they refused, accusing Ken of collusion with Kai's men. The latter group approached Ken and warned that he'd pay for his actions. They then fled the tavern, leaving Lu Fang unharmed. In any realm, one found themselves. The villains always echoed the same ominous refrain. Before long, Ken dashed over to Lu Fang, showering him with praise for his remarkable ingenuity, having amassed a fortune, and offering him a generous share. Yet Lu Fang insisted on channeling the money to the mercenaries instead. Soon after, Ken approached Lu Fang, whispering that Wuk Kai was resolutely obstinate, and the regiment's leader, MMO2, would not easily forgive him. Lu Fang expressed gratitude and resolved to depart with Xiao Jin immediately. Ken tossed the gold onto the table, instructing the hostess to tally the damages, promising to cover all costs. When the hostess inquired about the remaining amount, Ken kindly allowed her to keep it as a tip. But unfortunately, it fell short of covering both the food and the broken items. Upon receiving the bill, Ken was taken aback, asking Xiao Jin how many servings he had consumed, to which he replied he had only indulged in 9, sufficient to sate his appetite. A little while later, Ken, accompanied by Lu Fang and Xiao Jin, strolled through the woods. Lu Fang expressed gratitude to his brother Ken for his kindness. taking responsibility for the mishap. Ken not only parted with all his money, but also retrieved their garments. Ken assured him it was no issue at all, as Lu Fang was akin to a brother. However, he winced at the thought of the substantial tavern debt. Suddenly, a rustling sound emerged, and a cloaked figure approached, offering an opportunity to earn some money. In the mercenary regiment's courtyard, people were immersed in a dark liquid, pleading with MMO2 to spare them, vowing not to fail again. Once they had succumbed to the liquid, Wook Kai's companions rushed over and informed him that the deputy head had been defeated. MO2 sought clarification, and they attributed the victory to the newcomer Ken, who had vanquished Wook Kai with a single punch. Following this, a slender man, the head of their guild, emerged from the dark substance and questioned how Wook Kai had fallen so swiftly given his rank 8 status. He expressed doubt that Ken could afford to hire such a formidable warrior, and expressed a desire to meet him. A guild member explained that, based on a scout's report, Ken's squad was now entering the mercenary guild. Later at the guild, Lu Fang inquired about how Brother Ken had managed to retrieve their garments. He recounted the embarrassing ordeal he had endured with the mistress until she returned their clothing. Lu Fang then asked if, once Lu Fang became a level 7 mercenary, they could undertake a C-class mission from the mysterious man, to which Ken explained that a mercenary regiment couldn't accept missions beyond their level. If Lu Fang ascended to level 7 or higher, their squad would be promoted to C-class, granting them higher earnings to settle their tavern debt. Lu Fang contemplated the recent events and found it peculiar that the mission had come to them so easily. However, Brother Ken interrupted his thoughts, clapping him on the shoulder, announcing their arrival. He elaborated on the stone's ability to gauge one's strength level. Lu Fang approached the receptionist, explaining that it was his first time and requested a skill assessment. The receptionist directed him to strike the central stone with all his might. Lu Fang complied, delivering a powerful blow, but to his surprise, nothing extraordinary occurred. The administrator was astounded, suggesting it might have been magic instead, a notion Lu Fang promptly dismissed. The administrator grew irate at the suggestion of someone having neither magic nor spirit. Spectators around them applauded Lu Fang's amusing performance, revealing his aspiration to become a spiritless warrior. A scarred man seized Lu Fang's clothing, taunting him as trash, and advised him to return home. Lu Fang demanded to be released, but the man ridiculed him further, considering such trash's attempt at being cool. Unexpectedly, Lu Fang delivered a punch to the man's face, swiftly sending him to the ground. He asked the receptionist to re-evaluate the test. Shortly thereafter, a woman entered the hall and inquired about the disturbance, emphasizing that fighting was prohibited in the Association Guild. This woman was Sophie, the chairwoman of the Sunset Fortress Mercenary Guild. Upon seeing Miss Sophie, everyone in the room was captivated by her, including Lu Fang, who admitted she was undeniably alluring. She inquired about the situation, and Lu Fang pointed to the man behind him, explaining that he had acted in self-defense. The receptionist approached Sophie and misrepresented the situation. She expressed surprise at a man without magic or spirit aspiring to be a mercenary. Lu Fang clarified that all one needed to be a mercenary was strength, which he possessed. Sophie had no qualms accepting this, but found the stone test ineffective. She proposed a direct test herself. If he won, she would grant him mercenary qualification, but if he lost, he should leave, as she was weary of eloquent but inept individuals. Lu Fang agreed, acknowledging her authority, but reminded her of the guild's no-fighting rule. She assented, but made it clear that she was the rule. Meanwhile, Ken's nose was already bleeding profusely. He claimed to support his brother for friendship and duty's sake, but also confessed his admiration for Miss Sophie and his reluctance to see her lose. Xiao Jin suddenly urged him to stop hesitating and advised him, as a man, to follow his heart. Without further ado, he switched his allegiance, wholeheartedly supporting Miss Sophie in the upcoming battle, much to Ken's astonishment. As the confrontation commenced, Sophie swiftly launched a deadly attack at Lu Fang, yet he seemed to become ethereal, effortlessly eluding her strike. She marveled at his agility and attempted to discern his strength as he continued to evade her every move. Determined not to lose, she resolved to employ her own tactics. Following this, she launched an immediate assault on Lu Fang, deftly snipping a few strands of his hair, leaving him questioning the reality of the moment. However, He swiftly deduced that she was accelerating unexpectedly, surmising that she must be employing a technique to push past her limits and boost her speed. Thus, he begrudgingly acknowledged her as a fearless daredevil who was willing to stake her life even in such circumstances. He resolved to halt her as swiftly as possible. Sophie aimed to conclude the bout with a single punch, unleashing the formidable Stormwind technique. But out of nowhere, Lu Fang effortlessly intercepted her punch, stunning her with his agility. Simultaneously, he implored her to cease, reasoning that deploying techniques that could harm her was futile. Sophia, taken aback by this turn of events, reluctantly conceded her defeat. Lu Fang, eager to secure his mercenary certification, was caught off guard when Sophie inquired if he desired something more. Inviting him to her private office, she emphasized their exclusive presence, urging him not to hold back if he had any requests. He couldn't help but wonder if she would genuinely entertain any demand. Given Sophie's fierce demeanor during their battle and her subsequent attempt at seduction, he speculated that she sought something in return. He reiterated his sole desire for certification, prompting her to run a disappointed finger across her lips. She playfully asked if he found her intriguing, to which she replied that their mutual interests remained undiscovered. Eventually, he reaffirmed his singular focus on certification, to which she consented, confirming his success in the test. Lu Fang was taken aback by the unexpected examination, and Miss Sophie's forceful hand tap on the table intensified his astonishment. Rising from her seat, she straightforwardly expressed her desire to recruit him as her partner. She reintroduced herself as Sophie Chisot, one of the shares of the Mercenary Guild, each of whom led their own regiment and required a capable assistant like him. Recognizing his impressive persona and strength, she assured him that, as her teammate, he could request anything. Hearing this, Lu Fang inquired if she subjected others to a similar assessment, to which she replied that individuals like him were exceedingly rare, making him the first one she approached. Consequently, he'd assume the role of commander upon joining, with a doubled salary and a percentage of mission earnings. Politely, Lu Fang declined, apologizing for his disinterest. Sophie, undeterred by his rejection, questioned his rationale, offering him generous terms. However, he maintained his refusal for personal reasons. Sophie's frustration manifested in a forceful slap on the table as she informed him that he couldn't receive a badge without passing the stone test, and as a level 7 appraiser, she could only issue up to level 7 badges. Accepting the level 7 badge, he thanked Sophie and departed. With clenched fists, she vowed to remember him, confident that he'd eventually join her squad. Later, Lu Fang and Ken arrived at their associate's residence. Ken pounded on the door, exuberantly calling for Eru and Bet to celebrate their promotion to C-Class. However, receiving no response, he concluded that they had started their celebration without him and forcefully kicked open the door. But upon entering Lu Fang's room with Kenshi, they realized that something was amiss. The house was in disarray, and a bloody message on the wall declared, "You'll pay for what you did with MO2, signing off." Enraged, Lu Fang clenched his fists and resolved to confront MO2. However, Ken blocked his path, urging caution, as MO2 was a peak level 8 and likely set an ambush. Ken couldn't let Lu Fang's brother walk into such a trap. Lu Fang questioned if Ken was willing to let Beta die, and Xiao Jin vowed to rescue them. Ken proposed reporting the incident to law enforcement, but Lu Fang rejected the idea, believing that they wouldn't intervene. Eventually, Lu Fang agreed with Ken's plan to report back the following day. Ken attempted to soothe Lu Fang and reminded him that killing was prohibited in the Sunset Fortress, implying that MO2 wouldn't dare to do it. Lu Fang agreed, hoping for the best. When food was mentioned, Xiao Jin eagerly anticipated it, expressing a desire for a hearty meat meal. Later that night, Ken got drunk and fell asleep with Xiao Jin at his side. In his dream, he made a promise to save Beta. Once he was certain they were sound asleep, Lu Fang set off for MO2's mercenary regiment headquarters. Upon reaching the headquarters, Lu Fang found himself immediately surrounded by MO2's men. Unfazed, he swiftly dispatched all attackers, confident in Brother Ken's assurances. Then, he created a magic circle and leaped to avoid its fiery onslaught, realizing a hidden mage's presence. He pinpointed the mage's location behind foliage and disarmed him with a precise sword throw. Lu Feng couldn't fathom why Mo2 would let his men perish so easily. Suddenly, a voice rang out, assuming Lu Feng to be the one who defeated Wu Kai. Expecting Mo2, Lu Feng turned but found no one. The voice threatened to kill him, prompting Lu Feng to advance toward its source. Yet, he still couldn't locate Mo2. The ground beneath him turned into mud, ensnaring him, and he prepared to confront his hidden adversary with all his might. Lu Feng began swinging his sword in an attempt to break free, while Mo2's voice echoed ominously from the swamp. With a sudden realization that there was no other option, Mo2 gave the command for the archers to unleash their arrows. As the chaos erupted, Lu Feng dove for cover. But an unexpected twist occurred. Instead of attacking him, the archers mysteriously vanished, leaving Lu Feng utterly baffled. Just as confusion reigned, a striking red-haired girl emerged atop the wall, handing him a whip with a strangely familiar voice. Without hesitation, he grasped the whip, and at that very moment, he was yanked away. The ground beneath him churned as Mo2 demanded to know where he thought he was going, causing dirt to spiral upward. Suddenly, the earth transformed into a colossal mud golem, lunging menacingly at Lu Feng. Yet, Lu Feng refused to flee, defiantly slicing the golem's arm into fragments. Astonishingly, the golem swiftly regenerated, catching Lu Feng off guard with its rapid recovery. Eventually, Lu Feng found himself on solid ground once more. Gazing around, he wondered if the enigmatic woman had dispatched their foes. She revealed that she had used a potent drug-inducing instant dizziness to achieve this. But their respite was brief, as a formidable mud golem interrupted, hurling a massive mud chunk toward them, narrowly evaded by Lu Feng and the woman. Recognizing the golem's swift recuperation, Lu Feng realized they needed to uncover its vulnerability and, more crucially, locate Mo2. The woman explained that Mo2 was hidden in an invisibility-inducing swamp, proposing that they simply obliterate the swamp. Without warning, the woman conjured a barrage of blue orbs, freezing the mud golem upon impact. Witnessing this, Lu Feng marveled at her strength and inquired about her identity. She cryptically responded that she was just a small gift prepared for Mo2, vowing that he would never dare to reveal himself again, lest she freeze him into an icy statue. Mo2, breaking free from the frozen mud, questioned the stranger's identity, to which she brushed off as unimportant, asserting that he wasn't her primary concern. Mo2 attempted to taunt her with a freeze attack, but Lu Feng swiftly moved behind him, eluding the sneak attack and launching a counterattack. In the heat of the moment, Lu Feng pierced Mo2's defenses, demanding answers. Mo2, now desperate, implored for mercy, offering riches and even companionship. But Lu Feng remained resolute, insisting that Mo2 release Beta. Mo2 agreed to release Beta but insisted on showing one last thing. He hurled a sealed scroll toward Lu Feng, but before Mo2 could grasp what happened, Lu Feng had already